Emergency funds are funds or resources set aside for us to use in times of need, or in times like the names suggest, in times of emergencies. So there are funds that we set aside for emergencies. So what then do we do with emergency funds? Are emergency funds part of your savings? Technically, emergency funds are money saved aside, but emergency funds are not your savings. Now, we live in interesting times. Now, this COVID season has taught us that if you do not have emergency funds, how did you survive? Did you live on borrowing? So one important thing that we must have learned is that in this COVID season, what we're expected actually to thrive on is on our emergency funds. So emergency funds are funds that are set aside for periods of unforeseen circumstances, unforeseen events, and things that happen. So, and a very good one like we shared is COVID. Now, what do we do with our emergency funds? Now, what we're going to look at today for Kabzeel, we've talked about some of these thoughts. Now, we have a funnel system, a threefold saving system that I like to encourage every member of this group. Now, level 1 is your emergency fund. That is for everyone who is starting. Your level 1 is your emergency fund. Your level 2 is your savings. Now, under savings, we're going to talk about that briefly in a bit. We have two types, the short-term savings and the long-term target savings. Then level 3 is the storehouse. And we're going to talk extensively about the storehouse. So back to emergency funds, which is level 1. Like I said, if you're just joining us, emergency funds are funds set aside for emergencies. So it is advisable to store aside your funds in a way that it is not easily accessible for flippant uses, but it is readily available for emergencies. And in my own practice, I have found two easy ways to do this. One simple example, because you don't just want to keep money that is idle and then somebody comes and borrows that. No, emergency funds don't work like that. Emergency funds are neatly tucked away. One easy way to do this is to use dollars. So you can save the money in dollars. Now, if you store that, probably keep it in your dorm, or if you have up to $1,000, you can invest that. But it's readily available. But it's better it is saved in dollars. So that way, when you need it, if somebody comes to borrow the money from you, the money is not available because the person probably needs naira, but you do not have naira. But if there is an emergency and then rubber hits the road, what you simply do is take the dollars, you get it changed, and you get value. So it's simply store the money in a way where you can get value in an emergency. The second way is to store in raw gold. Now, raw gold are things that can also be readily converted to money. Now, the reason why I'm not advising us to just keep our funds in naira is because of devaluation and inflationary pressures on the naira. So if you're just keeping a particular set sum amount for emergencies for a long time, it will lose value. So when I say gold, I do not mean jewelry. I mean raw processed gold, refined gold. So what that does is you keep it and then you can convert it back to cash at the original rate, at the prevalent rate, because gold is an international commodity. The dollars also is an international currency. So what then do we do with emergency funds? How much should be your emergency fund? It's very simple. It depends on your needs. What emergency do you foresee may happen? So for example, if you look at COVID now, COVID has shut down operations for averagely of about 3 months, and in some places experiencing more. So I will advise a Kabzeelite, a K-Lite like we call ourselves, if you're a new member here, I will advise one of us to at least have savings as emergency funds that can last you for a minimum of 3 months. That means for 3 months, if anything happens, you are fine based with your emergency funds alone. So I hope you understand, emergency funds are funds set aside for emergencies such as COVID, and they are stored in ways such as that can keep value. I've given 2 examples. One is US dollars, another is raw gold, not jewelry, that can be converted readily to cash. Then you keep as much as you need or you foresee. So some can do 3 months, some can do 6 months. Emergency funds are ideally not to be invested. They are to be available within 24 hours of an emergency. So you can keep it in a low interest rate mutual fund where you can get it back available. So that is the advice for emergency funds.